Great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to session 3 of our workshop on the evolution of fire. Could I have your attention, please? Thank you. Although this is a small crowd yet, I think we are about to have a very interesting session about the sustainability of fire in the context of collaboration opportunities. And in this session, we will focus at the beginning to our presentations on 3 particular collaboration partners, potential collaboration partners. We are starting with a presentation by Serge Fidila on the collaboration opportunities with EIT IST Labs. Then Mauro Campanella will give a presentation on the opportunities offered through Géant. And finally, we'll have a look outside of Europe and see how we can collaborate with similar initiatives in the US, like DINI, and we know there are also others in other countries like Japan, which we can also discuss. And then, of course, this is not just about presentations, we want to have an interactive discussion on all these opportunities. So what I would suggest is we can have brief discussions immediately after the presentations, more to clarify questions and immediate responses on the different aspects mentioned. That for a more generic discussion, we will have a second round where we will have the panel up here, and we will explore these questions more deeply then. With that said, I would invite Serge to start with this presentation. Please, Serge.
Thank you, Ilan.
Sure. You just go over there. If you hover over there, then you, it's popping up.
Mine. I'll take this one. Yep. Good morning. I will try to warm up the room. Not so many folks yet, but I have a regular presentation which you will see here, and a very short one which I found this morning. It's here. It's mostly about the main message that I want to convey with this presentation. When I look at the program, I thought that I was back maybe a couple of years ago when again the Commission was asking us about sustainability of the fire facilities. So every year we have to address the sustainability, not only the sustainability but also the fact that we address, and that was a funny comment from CP yesterday, we addressed 10% of the users, which we call experimenters, use funny users who want to really play with all the different parameters, and they address 90% of the consumers, which I'll be very happy to meet as soon as they will be really involved in the development. But nevertheless, I would like to share a few thoughts with you, just to try to convince you that we are getting closer and closer to have a fully operational facility, which is open and diverse, which again were 2 of the objectives that we have been targeting within fire. And that not only we already have experimenters playing with the facility, but we expect also to have users as defined yesterday by users from industry. And again, just to highlight this message, we have this workshop just to convince you to attend and to see that we have a plan to extend the facility toward this kind of users. So I'll have a short presentation, so I won't go into the details because I'm sure that you are all experts about fire. But I would like just to come back in 2 minutes about the vision that has been driving the development of the facility. Then I would like to stress a few points that are related to what I call an intimate test bed, because that's exactly the goal that we are targeting since many years within FIA. And then I will highlight, and that's the core of this session, the synergies between FIA and ICT Lab. And I will try to explain you why we found that ICT Lab was really a good partner to help us to develop this vision towards sustainability. So, we are dealing with testbeds. You know, some of them were successful. They all got initiative with public funding. And then they have to find some other mechanism to become sustainable. It's true that they mostly address researchers, but if you look at researchers, they all also involve experimenters from industry. Lot of those testbeds, other than this one, failed. And they failed mostly because of the inability to become sustainable, because the funding stopped and they have no management capabilities and no plan to make them sustainable. And this is a shame, because there are tons of testbeds everywhere in Europe and outside Europe that are very interesting, because they provide cutting-edge technologies, because they provide interesting management tools, because they provide valuable monitoring companies. How can we benefit from this mass of testbeds that are developed here and there? And how can we use those testbeds to enforce sustainability? And that's this principle that we have behind the architecture, which is related to an ecosystem, open and diverse, that I will highlight in a minute. So with those isolated testbeds, you are very limited because you are working in silos. You have what I illustrate here as an authority. So you have an authority that is managing resources, providing access to users, and users can play with the testbed thanks to some tools. But unfortunately, those different testbeds cannot share tools, cannot share resources, and those different and diverse resources cannot benefit the users. So this is this model that we want to break thanks to federation. Within this kind of model, which is specific to FIA, where you see here that we can now consider that testbeds provide resources. Resources are considered as if it was available in the marketplace. And a user can, thanks to an authority, access to all the resources. Of course, conditioned by some policies. So just consider that now testbeds provide resources. This is a marketplace. How are you going to organize the marketplace? Of course, in the beginning, we had to start slowly with resources that are all similar. That was the case with Planet Lab, and with a very simple model, like in peer-to-peer, which is a fit for purpose. So this is exactly the vision. We want to develop an internet of testbeds. So maybe we can benefit from the experience that we have developed building the internet. How did we build the internet? First of all, we need some enablers. I'm not going to the details, but since the beginning we said virtualization and open source are two key enablers. So this is why we grounded our development on those enablers. Long before, SDN and NFV became popular. Likewise, we always argue about open source, although a lot of people told us that this is not a good way to go because you will not be able to sell services. If you consider the internet, one of the success of the internet architecture is the famous hourglass model. So you have a thin layer on top of which you have applications that hide the basic of the infrastructure. So that's really important with respect to the architecture. And then you have, let's say, a business model, which is based on peering. Again, I'm not going into the details, but I think it's important that you really see that we mimic somehow the development of this architecture on two pillars. One is really this thin layer which will abstract the underlying components to the user. and the business model. Those two are very important. So the question that we raised long ago was exactly the following. What is the right level of abstraction? What is the minimum set of functionality that we have to encapsulate in this thin layer? Likewise, we have. So that what we can do is expose the resource characteristics to the user. The user would like to see all the resources that are brokered by the authorities. And of course, we want also to provide control to the experiment, because things can happen, and we need to monitor carefully what is happening. We need also to provide accounting in a way that eventually we can charge the access to the resources. If you want to do this, and likewise, if you consider all the debate about the governance of the Internet, we need also to design the governance model. This is really important, and you will see what are the guidelines for the governance model, so that testbed owners can still continue to develop their own roadmap. We don't want to have any control on their own roadmap, but we want to provide incentive for them to federate things. And, of course, issues that are related to the business. So I won't go into the details, but
Serge, let's ask a question. When will you be coming to the collaboration with the ATS students?
I'm going there, but to understand why we are going there, it's important that you have this in mind.
Okay, that's yours left.
No, I have 15 minutes, you say.
Altogether?
Yes.
Or you spend time?
Then already?
Yeah.
Okay, you know this model. Okay, I will. So, this thin layer that I mentioned before is what we call SFT. The good news is that this has been standardized. So by standardized, we didn't go to IETF or ITU or whatever. It's a de facto standard. So this is a very good news. With respect to the governance, what we developed is a model where there is not a single point of control. This is really, really important with respect to governance and with respect to subsidiarity. So every authority will be able to manage its own resources, which of course will benefit from, for instance, local, national, proprietary funding. But then we provide the means to do all the facilities to support the users. Components, I'll skip this because I don't have much time, but what is important, if I want just to highlight a few points, I can just take one of the components, which is the portal. My slides. And as you can see, they are contributors. So it's an open source code, and you already have different partners who are contributing to this portal. It's used in many different locations in the world, not only in Europe, but it's used in Brazil, it's used in China, it's going to be used now in Korea. And we expect to spread this elsewhere. And the end of this process for us, of course, there is Pre-FIA, which will carry on with the experience and its own flavor. But the end of this process for us is that after having managed for many years Planet Lab in Europe as a service, we are going to open in a month the One Lab facility, which is the first open, diverse federation of testbeds. You can have wireless, you can have IoT, you can have Planet Lab type of resources, and you can federate them all. You see the knock, because again, if you want to be able to control those different testbeds, you need to have a network of operation. And you can see some famous visitors here, including Windsor. And I come now to the synergy between FIRE and ICT. This is related with sustainability mostly, because we have many testbeds available. We have a federation architecture, we have a governance model, and we have defined also a legal framework. The legal framework enables for an authority which is managing testbed to federate with us under some rules. Likewise, the user can federate, can, for instance, register to an authority and benefit from the resources provided by other authorities. So this legal framework has been signed by a few partners that are stakeholders of the roadmap facility. So all of this exists. So we could continue, and honestly, we still have the resources to continue to work on it. Why did we consider that ICT Lab was a good target to develop synergy? So I don't know how many of them are aware about the KIC framework. This is kind of animal. But KIC are very interesting for different reasons. First, they address 3 pillars: education, research, innovation. So this is all we have always been discussing here. And the 3 of them are equally important. Second, if you look at the KIC, this is the case for ICT Lab, there is of course only one KIC related to ICT. And you see the stakeholders here. So the key players in Europe, both from industry, SMEs, and academia. And they are anchored in nodes. And you see here the different nodes that basically offer a critical mass. So ICT Lab is really an important actor for the development of ICT industry. Plus, ICT Lab itself, although it is funded for 7 years, they will themselves have to find a business model for the system. And in this business model, when they started, for instance, tools that can be shared among stakeholders or partners are very important. So this is why, as soon as ICT Lab started, we pushed the FIA facilities into ICT Lab to explore how they can become an important business component of ICT Lab. So that's basically the motivation and the reason why we started to discuss with them. So again, the idea is the following. We have different test beds. Whoever are managing is not important. We have the federation that make this system more sustainable, because even if this wireless test bed stops, we can certainly have many of them available elsewhere. Now we have the issue related to governance. We have this governance model I mentioned before. We have the legal framework. We need to find someone who would like to operate. Why? Because we believe that this is not the purpose of a university to operate such a facility in the long term. And of course we need a business model, because we need to support also the operations. Besides the fact that most of the resources that you can see here are themselves sustainable, because they are provided by third parties, thanks to different kinds of grants, national grants or proprietary grants. So we have 2 important actions, and this is why I highlighted here this leaflet. 2 important actions, and certainly we had the opportunity to discuss this during the session. One is named CI-FIA. It's going to help us, besides other things, to strengthen the dialogue between ICT Lab and FIA. And another one that I will present a little bit further is this fantastic activity. So fantastic is an activity which is funded by ICT Lab itself to measure the gap between what we have today in a few test beds and what we would like to have to make those test beds available to industry based on the business model and on functional, operational solutions. So this is a similar model as the one I presented before. This is basically test bed as a service. You can go to this website and you will see what we have developed. We started with 2 complementary solutions, and I'm done in 1 minute here. 2 complementary solutions that are up and running. We will start slow, and then we will grow depending on the demand. So one is the one-lab facility, which I highlighted just before. And the other one is the FUSECO facility. So I'm sure that you heard about the FUSECO facility, which is provided as a service by Focus, and with the support of TU Berlin. They are very complementary because FUSECO is supposed to target, let's say, IMS type of needs with more industrial type of users. This is the roadmap, but it's not so important. But again, in this roadmap, we have all the different steps that you can't really see here, but the development of the portal, the accounting, the business model, and so on and so forth. So, for those who thought that we only target experimenters, researchers, this is true, of course, because that's the motivation. about developing an Internet of Things. Nevertheless, with this dialogue that we have established with ICT Lab since 2 or 3 years now, actually we started to put the seeds in ICT Lab with selling the testbed as a tool to be shared by the stakeholders. And with the support of Team Berlin and Focus, we have this process now of bridging the gap between providing a service to experimenters as researchers, but also providing a service to users, mostly community. And again, I will incentivize you to come to this meeting in Paris, which is organized jointly by CI-FIRE and Fantastic, this is ICT Lab activity, to show you how you can use the facility in this process. And I apologize if I exceed by 2 or 3 minutes, but I promise I won't answer to the questions written.
Thank you, Serge. Are there any immediate questions to Serge? So some of you may be new to hear about things like Fantastic, although everything we do is fantastic, but we have this special project. I think we can come to that later in the discussion. However, if you have any immediate urgent questions, here's your chance to ask them. And Serge will give you short, concise answers.
Yeah, all convinced.
Yeah. We made the sale. So I could have done the sales pitch for the event that we organized at CI-FIRE in June better. So date is 27th of June. Please come to Paris, lovely city, and we have an excellent program there. So mark the date, and thank you, Serge, again. Now we come to a completely different collaboration partner that's nonetheless equally interesting, and that is Géant. And Mauro Campanella will tell you all about the opportunities that Géant will offer. Please, Mauro.
Can you help me finding the presentation? So, it's this yours? Oh, we lost it. So, takes little things. Okay, here we go. Slideshow. Okay, there you go. Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning to everyone. I have been asked to briefly discuss about Client Jam. Jam is a long endeavor. I thought useful to have first just the fact that Jam is an overloaded terminology. By definition, it's mainly a community, so we are very in line with what we are discussing about federating a large environment. Jam is to create internet, not to be part, it's to create internet essentially. So it's a community, is the project in the forms of a series of a project that is co-funded by the European Commission. The current activity project is Geometry Plus, that will last until 2015, and is, by definition, also the network backbone in Europe. And the NRNs complement that network backbone with their own. The network backbone is this size. We slowly evolved from, let's say, the last 15 years, from 34 megabits to the current implementation, which is 100 megabits per wavelength, which means that usually for each fiber you may have a maximum now of 500 gigabits, and that can be further evolved. The big step was owning the resources. So one message here is that as soon as we are capable of having the possibility to use the raw resources in terms of optical fibers, that was a big step forward. So the ownership of the resources, the full management of the resources was fundamental. What is important is that GERMT is not in one country. The GERMT community is all over Europe, and in each European country there is a national research and education network that has the main goal to help the research and education users, which includes also the FIRE facility is one of the most interesting facilities and community. How can I understand what GERMT can offer? and we can discuss how to use. Well, the model of Giant is that we have core services. Typically, core services are the capacity services, the possibility to access raw capacity in terms of layer 2 connectivity, layer 3 connectivity. We have multi-domain services because usually, especially for multi-country projects, you need to have connectivity between countries, and this is usually done connecting, starting from one country, using the backbone connectivity, and then ending in the other country. And then we have campus services. You are probably using EduRoam. EduRoam has been invented in this environment and is widespread now in use also to the campuses, and also not just in education. Now people is thinking to use EduRoam also in restaurants or in other cases because it fulfills the requirements of the users. Another contribution that we can discuss about is that the fact that the Giant backbone connects directly a large number of countries in other world regions. The fact that they connect directly other world regions means that we can directly have a dialogue with remote research and education networking, because this is the research and education networking environment. For example, in the United States there is Internet 2, which is at the base of Gini. The resources of Gini are provided by Internet 2, or ESNet, which is the energy science network. We reach China, we reach other countries. So this is also the basic ingredients of providing a physical connectivity. How we innovate? Well, we have inside the project, inside each event, strong activity around innovation. And the innovation is in all directions, because we are interested obviously in the basic ingredient, which is connectivity, but now we are evolving to more hyper-layer services, mobility clouds, sensors. I like to quote also Heart of Humanities. Just yesterday there was a demonstration of how a live session of teaching can be done between Italy and Denmark using 400 megabits per second. And there was a teacher, musician teacher, of trumpet and viola, and students in another country, and they exchanged it lively through the internet, this kind of remote teaching experience. Identity and trust technologies, I think, are the key ingredient of every type of federation. And this is a tough balance between trust and real identities and business models and so on. We have developed various technologies to really put in practice and make AAI technologies, authorization and authentication infrastructure technology, available for our communities. Last but not least, last year we had open calls inside Giant, which means that we accepted proposals from the research community at large to experiment in various areas. In the Giant website, you can find the 21 approved proposals that are running using this infrastructure, and they span from optical, terabit networking, to SDN to other regions. So this is also interesting for possible collaboration in various subjects. Project support, well, this is what we do as a production environment. Keep in mind that Giant and the NRS actually have a production network for something like probably between 2 and 5 million per country of users every day, at every time, 24 hours and 24. So there is a long experience in managing production environment in terms of capacity and in terms of services, because now we are no longer talking about single point-to-point capacity, we are talking about the capacity and the AI services, even some clouds, IPv4 and IPv6 resolvers, video conferences. So we have experience in what Serge really is. I found very nice introduction of the issues that we have to face if we want to move to a production environment which is useful for the researchers, and is also scalable, because one of the main points is that you can't just restrict your testing in a lab. You need to test on a worldwide environment, because this is what the business is expecting. If you develop something that should be available worldwide, and for some or most of the technologies that use ICT, you really need to test the scaling of your solution. There are some maybe less known possibility to interact. We have built in the last 5 to 10 years an EduPerf database, knowledge database information about how to debug network, how to use the network. If a network issue arises like, oh, I have this low connection, how can you really test that? How can you really understand and debug these? And this is the EduPerf activity run by students. Everything is not for profit. The NRN's environment is a non-for-profit environment, which means that if there are any costs in the collaboration between other entities, including large projects like NSC or other projects, then this is usually done on a cost recovery environment. It's very important to say that even that we are managing a very distributed environment, every connection from a lab or an entity should go to the local environment. This is, for a lot of reasons, language is one of these. But apart from joking, this is what allows us to understand how to scale better these environments. Then the user terms, the use of the core backbone, is taking into account if we need to reach other countries or other continents. So this is some kind of a model in which you have at the right time, at the right place, the resources you need to develop what the user wants to achieve. We just discussed it again yesterday, how we can now put all these information available to the FIA environment, to the future development of these federation activities. We plan to have much better written down, if you want, sense on how to gather information, how to distribute the information in both sides, which are the point of concepts. How can we help in proposal preparation if that needs some resources or services that are available to our environment, and of course some memorandum of understanding for further collaboration. I think that's it. We covered it.
Thank you. Are there any immediate questions to Mauro about Géant and the collaboration opportunities? I'm sure we will come back to that point in the panel discussion. I know that Mauro already prepared some good answers that he wouldn't share right now, but we'll come back later.
That's the real issue.
So I don't know if you're all happy or just still in the sleep. What that is? It will be very fast. Okay, maybe. Well, yeah, please.
Beyond also offering a wide spectrum of services, kind of services. How do you see the relation between the services that are being developed elsewhere, for example, UAPS, FIA research like that? How do you see that co-evolving over time?
Personally, I think that what Sergio has said is the only way forward in our environment. We collaborate, kind of open source collaboration, kind of usage and interest of what has been developed. The sustainability of a single product is the real issue. We can't hide the fact that the more we are going up the network layers, if you want, to applications using software, using complex environment, then the sustainability of that product is the most important. I mean, maintaining software is much harder than just maintaining networking somewhere. Forgive me, Michael, but Michael Winter, the CTO. So this is the key question, and of course we need to find who is interested and be prepared to continuously evolve, because we learned that something does not last for more than 2-3 years. Then you have to really put your hand in and modify. So you have to be prepared not just to a normal maintenance, some kind of a flat fee for 5, 10 years. No, there are some timings in which you have spikes of effort because you need to change it. You need to drastically modify or enlarge what you've done, and this is another problem.
Thank you. Well, and please introduce yourselves. I think most of the people know each other in the room, but still, I think some may not, so please say your name. So this was Hans Schappers, which coordinator. Please,
Can I have one question? So please ignore my ignorance. I'm not that aware of all the details, but I was just wondering. I'm with one guy from my next so we all know GIA is a wonderful tool for academic research. But I was thinking, if I would be a company, a commercial service provider, I would love to connect to a platform like that. Is there an alternative for companies, or is there an evolution path that this will be opened up in the mid or long term, or how do you see that?
We have access policies to these networks. Since most of these networks is co-funded or funded by public organizations, we usually don't allow commercial traffic on these networks because commercial traffic, yeah, with all the providers there, and we want to devote everything for the researchers. Say this, we have always offered the possibility for the research arm of the commercial entity to use these environments. Just an example, a company is Telecom Italia there. We have connected the Telecom Italia labs many times with dedicated partners for specific projects. They participate in the project. We're really willing to help them to move forward in the research environment. As soon as the project is finished and they move to commercial environment, then usually we disconnect them and mutual agreement. So we have to discuss, of course. If you just ask, can I use these as I will use any large provider? The answer is no. Can we collaborate to research something? Yes.
I think there are those who we can come back to this in the discussion, but there are patches with interesting changes that are taking place structurally, like in New Zealand, for example, where you bring on board business managers, and also I think what the Netherlands have also some interesting examples, making things sustainable, they're deploying new services and putting them out to tender. So, I think that there are some interesting things going on.
Yeah, I do go into the details of running such a large environment, but obviously tenders and some strong commercial type of management is needed in this environment. We do have a lot of agreements and a way of voting and the management and so on. So there is a lot of that which is embedded in the environment. It might be of interest to these for ICT effort because we are a non-for-profit organization. So we are between, if you want, the for-profit organization and the pure research. And so we address very well this environment, which is probably best suitable for this discussion.
Thank you again, Mauro. And yes, let's come back to that later. Now, Mauro, thank you. You already mentioned that GIA is operating with worldwide partners on a worldwide scale, and we keep that focus on what's happening in the world, and we look at the US and Jimmy, and Wim Pallenberger will tell us about the cooperation opportunities that Jimmy can offer. Yes. Please.
And let's find your slides first.
Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Wim Pallenberger, with IMITE, and I'd like to share with you in this 50 minutes some insights that we got from a specific workshop last October, which was intended to really investigate how we can collaborate with Genie. So I'm basically here to report on few talks that came out of the panels that were there. So first, a bit more background about that workshop. So it was hosted by Pre-FIA, but it was a much broader initiative than that. So there was really strong involvement in the organization by the European Commission also. We had also a lot of universities and partners from outside the project. It was really a bigger scope than that. And also from Gini, we had the very highly respected people on board. The goal, like I just said, was to stimulate collaborations and really investigate. So it was just, we had identified a few topics, and there was really an open-minded discussion, and the goal was to identify next action. That was the goal of this workshop. It was held in October in Leuven, in Belgium, and it was a small group. So it was 15 invited participants from both sides of the Atlantic, and then from organizations. And they were really selected based on expertise. So the organization created a list of topics, and then they really looked for the people who could contribute the most to this exploration. So these are the specific topics that were identified and discussed. So we talked about experiments. Then we had a session about general aspects like architecture, like Serge, of course. No, this is like Serge already greatly introduced, so I will skip technical details. Resource description, policies, data plane, and education. All the slides of all these people are available. You can find them on that link, and if it's too small to write down, there should be a news item on the website today where you can also find it. So it's easy to find. So what I will do now in the remainder of this presentation is I will just give basically the conclusions of the session chairs of these different. So for experiments, this was the kickoff of the meeting. The intention was to have a feeling of what the experimenters want, what they need are the open issues, and then take this as an input in the next discussion of that 2-day workshop. And the first thing we noticed is that they did see a clear benefit of federation, which is always nice to see that confirmed by the people really using the testbeds. So they are interested in experimenting across multiple testbeds. Good things for them are geographic diversity, coverage of different domains, and also the fact that federation allows them to scale up. So there was a clear consensus that the federation is a good angle to pursue further. But there are still some challenges. So there are still differences in interfaces. Descriptions of the resources are still quite different. So there is some harmonization potential to be done. Also, the users can be quite different. It's not that straightforward to support them all in a way that's comfortable for all of them. And then things like trust authorization and policies also need further attention. So a few action items that came up were to look for some experiments that really go as diverse as possible, to have them as a sort of benchmark to test out your federation techniques as good as possible. Unify the APIs and the RSpecs and so on. This will come back later, and try to hide things from the experiment that they don't need to be aware of the underlying technical details. So the easier the better, basically, from an experimental point of view. So that was the conclusion of the first session, which started that workshop. And then there was a rather large session on general aspects. So one of them was about the APIs. So like Serge already gave a good introduction of SFA, that this is the thin waist of federation, which is harmonized across all the testbeds. Well, there is one slight hiccup, and in the implementations you have different slight variations, slight flavors of that same API. So we want to harmonize it. This is a thing we want to get rid of. So there is an actual work on that, which started after the workshop. I presented that yesterday. I think the slides will flow around from the standardization workshop that we had yesterday. But basically, before the summer, this should be fixed. So it's really an action that is going on. And this includes really small differences, but they are important nonetheless. So in terms of authentication authorization, you have two ways to give your own credentials to another party, like if you have a hosted tool or something. And those are all things we are clearing out. Conformance testing, cross-testing was discussed and something considered to be very useful, so this will be given sufficient attention in future collaborations. And basically driven by the remark of the experimenters, we really want to design our tools based on what the users want, how they feel that they want to work with the tool to make them really user-friendly. Fine. So now I come to the third session, was one about resource description, but I see Alex is in the back, so he was leading the task force that came out of that, so a lot of more details I think go to Alex, but I'll bring the high-level conclusions. So there was an agreement that describing resources as every testback in a semantically manner, a rich descriptive manner, is something we want to pursue. In other words, ontologies are a good thing to describe our resources, and it's something we want to harmonize. But as people involved in ontologies know, it's not something you do overnight. It's a thing we discuss greatly. So you have to find a way forward that will work for all of us, or for most of us anyway. So there were some concrete actions to jointly define upper ontologies. Look, if you go for ontologies, how we will translate it to the XML-based RSpec format. Then define API extensions to keep running both for a transition period and so on. So there were some concrete actions, and an actual task force came out of that, which already had some conf and so on. So that's all initiated at that point. Policies, that was a very interesting session, because then I think that was one of the sessions where you had a clear cultural difference. So if you look to the States, I start with Europe. Here we are looking at mechanisms to say if companies come in, we might charge them a bit in terms of sustainability, and then we are looking at advanced different profiles, premium user, normal user, and so on, the trial users. But in the States, they care less, I have the feeling. They just, if you want to use it, you use it, and that's it. Except if you are from a country that they don't like, which is less effective in Europe. So there you have two different cultural differences. So that's why Michael Boniface gave the great example of showstoppers, like if you're a Cuban industry, you will be able to work nowhere. So there are some things to look into. But that was something I didn't realize before the workshop, so that was very interesting. And then because of that cultural difference, it will be challenging to have a policy really for all the parties at both sides of the Atlantic. So I think it's if we have an umbrella policy, it was defined to make it a very general one, and for the rest work case studies. So we won't be pursuing an actual policy that is really complete for all parties involved. But the technologies to be able to implement policies, those will be harmonized. So that's something else. So there we will try to do things together. So that's then the concrete steps forward. So they want to basically, the feeling that was at the workshop, they want to investigate a bit more and write this down in a joint comparison paper and so on. Then there was a session on data plane. So that was also very interesting. One thing that was very clear is that for the moment, VLAN 2 stitching is a thing that will keep being used for stitching across the different parts of the federation. But it's quite challenging because you go over a lot of different networks in between and so on. So it's a challenging thing to do, and we need more time to work on the details. And there was also a report about the first proof of concept between iMines, ION, and Genie, which was well received. So it's promising, but it needs to be expanded to include Xi'an and other resources in Europe. So that was the conclusion there. And then the last thing, education, which was chaired by Serge, so please correct me if there's anything you want to add. But something that was mentioned there is for an educator, you don't want to give him all the details of the technical, it's like for the experimenters, but you might want to abstract even more. So you want to make it very simple for a teacher to use 5 facilities for teaching, so to give labs or demos or whatever. If they want to do that, it's considered to be something very valuable for a student, but make it easy. So you are working on templates. You have lab contents available already to continue working on. There are some projects, like Forge is a European project that recently started really focusing on education on top of fire facilities. You have a similar activity in Genie called Genie Cinema, so you have to be aware of those different initiatives. And then there are several tools that you can use in the context of education, like Forge and Genie Cinema. LabWiki and Wave are tools to have students do a lab and then on one hand experiment, and on the other hand take notes and look at the results. And so it's a nice integrated environment. And then there are some other tools which I know. Methodology, very important for teaching, but I think that's not only for teaching. I think it's for any kind of experiment that reproducibility is important. And yeah, that's teaching is a special thing. It has to work. If you have a class and 30 students, you must be sure that it works. So it's getting a bit more stringent in terms of research management and so on. So that was specific for education. Okay, so those were the lessons learned or the outcomes of that workshop. So now I want to present what happened since then, since October. So there are two task forces that were created, like I mentioned them already. So one on ontologies, and one on the Common AM API version 1, which is basically SFA harmonization, because we had these slight differences in the implementation that we harmonized. So both task forces are working well together now. And then this is a very interesting opportunity. In the United States, we have a program now called SAVI. And SAVI is, I think it's a total budget of 300K, if I'm not mistaken, that they spent to just for travel from the US to here, to Europe. And it's a very lightweight proposal. I think it's a 1-page or a 2-page maximum, and it's continuously open. But they need to have, of course, a European counterpart partner involved. So they contact one of you, or you can contact them to set this up. And then you go, you say, well, you can come to here, we will support you, we'll work on this and that, to say what you want to do. And then they can ask for this funding in the States to send someone to you. And so this is still open. So if you have partnerships already with the States, it's interesting to know that this is an opportunity for you. And then what we did as a project at Spectrum Fire, we took 100K of unallocated budget, and we also invested in the project to collaborations with Genie. So we do similar things like the SAVI, where people travel to the States to collaborate, so in the other direction. So UPMC is sending 2 people, NTUA is sending 2 people. And then we also have 2 other more workshop-like things. The first one is the next workshop, like the one I just presented. So the next one is in the States, and we are sending, I think, 8 to 9 people to participate. Well, it's still to be defined. We are still looking at the invitations, but we have money if we need to send 8 to 9 people. And another thing is we will be organizing a summer camp in Ghent in the 2nd week of July. We are still working on the details, but the intention would be that it's real hands-on camp where researchers can come in and really learn to work with Genie and fire resources, so that after the camp they can use it in their own research. So it's really getting them closely involved. And next to that, one day would be more focused on the power users, where you could share experience and really the people who on the other side of the spectrum who have great experience in using these facilities. So that was all the things I could say about that. Now, so Nunom has booked us with a few questions, but I don't know if now is the most suitable time or do you want to go through those things in the panel, but I can quickly go.
I think we can
do it now.
We can do it in the panel.
Yeah, okay. So we have a slide with your questions.
This is already very good.
Voilà. So then I'll leave it here, and if you have any questions for me now already, don't be shy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's already a perfect transition. I already put the question up. So I would like to invite the other speakers as well to join the panel. And we need to enter the panel discussion phase then. And while we find our seats, please prepare in mind your questions. If you don't have any questions, I will have some questions for you. Good, so you already put the question up. So we heard now a lot about the potential collaboration partners, at least 3 of them. Now maybe it's not totally clear to everybody right now how these collaboration opportunities that are there can really benefit a fire facility. So then, as you put up the question, so could you maybe specify the answer for Ginny, and then we go around the table?
Well, yeah. Well, I think the collaboration won't bring immediately money to the facilities, but I think it can do. It's more the knowledge, so you can learn. Yes, sir. You can learn from each other, and you can try to do development together. So you can put on process, and you can because we have this common experiences, you can advance quickly. So I think this helps in sustainability, but I'm not sure if this collaboration will bring you immediately money to be sustainable. But that's my personal view.
Thank you. Then, so yeah, I understand that this might be a bit difficult in the research domain. So would this be similar for Gian model?
I think that most of the issues that we have listed here are common in research. So I think that collaborating is also a way to optimize the use of resources from every project, and it might also be a chance to see real possibilities to collaborate. By definition, this is not just sustainability, but it will help both to reach the goal. So this collaboration is high value.
So what you're saying is basically that it would help to optimize the product, and then this is also one important step on the way to sustainability.
And also to, let's say, decide to move along the same roadmap to avoid things that happen, like in this case later, we say, okay, I've chosen a certain methodology, then you've chosen another one, then we discovered that we have to communicate, and then we have to rework everything from scratch. If we have a certain amount of constant flow of information, agreement, that would really help probably in creating that attractive resources for the resources.
So for EIT, I see that the story might be a bit different, because if I understand correctly, EIT, I see that can open doors more towards innovation on the market.
So there are basically three levels with respect to sustainability. One level is with respect to individual tests. And I apologize if I'm a bit off, but this is the responsibility of every test performer. They have to understand why they develop the test bed, what kind of target they have as a service, how they are going to get the funding to provide the equipment, but overall can they manage the infrastructure with a service that will be useful for the users. The second level is about this concept of federation. Because again, we believe that there are tons of interesting test beds in the world. And maybe it's not a big problem if the test bed here in Athens, for some reason, will stop, because maybe we have many similar test beds elsewhere that the community can do. The good point that we have achieved after a couple of years is that now we have a framework, we have an architecture, we have a quite large community. So Vin mentioned the very positive development that we have achieved with Jenny in the US, but it's not the only case. There is a similar community today in Brazil, another one in Korea, another one in China. And China is really putting, maybe you saw that in another session yesterday, is putting quite an effort to use those tools, and they have the capability to contribute to the development of those tools. And we have now achieved a quite reasonable way with respect to new standards. Of course, there are still open questions like the ontologies and so on, which will take some time, but we can move forward with it. The last step is I thought it was mobile phone, but
It's just fire.
fire.
So just
So
fire.
the last step is about operation and business model. So for instance, for the Open Lab or the One Lab facility or the Plus Eco, but Alex, you can control me if I'm wrong, but those are sustainable. They exist since years, and this is our responsibility to keep them moving forward with providing an end service. But we believe that now it's an interesting cooperation that we can develop with ICT Lab. It's not done, it's complex because we have to sell the model, but ICT Lab is really the right target because they do with business, they do with education. So for instance, you were very short, but that's normal on education, but what we have, I will advise you to attend the session about MOOCs tomorrow and the Forge project, which is about using the resources provided by TestBed to provide classes, practical classes that can be shared by a large community, and those can be embedded within the ICT Lab offering. And it's a very legitimate target because ICT Lab is currently offering a master and a doctorate school shared among a large number of universities, and of course with internship within needed. So education can be seen as a very interesting target, and the fire facility is really available for this student. And of course, what we want to do with Fantastic and CI Fire is to better understand the need that ICT Lab will have if ever they will provide this as a service. And this is why we put a lot of emphasis together with some colleagues. I see Focus, TU Berlin, and others from CI Fire, to try to convince ICT Lab that this is a very good opportunity for its own business.
Yeah, thank you, Serge. So now let's turn the tables, and as I threatened, I have a question for the audience. So you listen to all of this right now. So who is a testbed owner? One hand, two, obviously, there's another one. Okay, so we're a small circle actually. Now, what value did you get out of what was just presented? Be honest, and if you didn't get the value you wanted yet, then there's still 25 minutes left to get it out of us here on the panel. Now, what complete expectations would you have if you think of the collaboration partners presented right now? Don't you have any expectations? So I would like to challenge, especially the testbed owners among you, to comment a little bit on what we presented here, and also say what would be your expectations, or are you already in collaboration with any of these organizations, and what are your experiences? Please go ahead. Who wants to be first? Stefan?
Yeah, so the fact is that, of course, I'm also with IMAX, so I think that might be one thing which probably interest. So basically, I think there are many ongoing operations. I also support the view of Serge that it's a facility responsibility to be sustainable somehow, and we see where to start collaborations. And of course, Big Five helps us very much to see what's out there, to learn what exists, and then we can step to regions like that. So it's very short comments. Perhaps it is a lot of research which I want to discuss.
Of course, also anybody who doesn't own the facility but still has an opinion is of course welcome to express this opinion right now. I just wanted to have a starting point as we're talking about making facilities sustainable, so we should talk to the owners. Right?
And that's one of the things that don't just have to do things at a certain point. So for example, I think for with us it's already existing because it's already connectivity, and then we work on many projects together. So there's very much taking the table and thinking about taking what's there and
Please.
There is another point I want to raise. Collaboration is essential. I'll take you an example. We start collaborating with Genie, and initially we need 100 meg. But then it turns out with 100 meg not enough, we need 1 gig. and then you can. Unless I collaborate and I understand the requirement and I understand how to actually fulfill these requirements, I will not be able to upgrade, to modify my facility. With tightly coupled, as I said before, sustainability, we will need to constantly upgrade the facility. This is what we are trying.
Now we looked, thank you, Mauro. We looked the whole time now from the fire facilities perspective. Now we should also, I think, be aware of what's in it for the potential collaboration partners. So what would be the benefit for them to collaborate with our fire facilities? What do you think? I mean, what's the benefit for Géant or for DIT-IST to collaborate with us in fire?
If you have someone from ICT Lab.
Yeah, true. Would be easy. Yeah. Well, what would you think? Because we, at the moment, I'm not sure we have anybody here. So, oh, please, Stefan.
From my perspective, we should start with the requirements of the customers of these. All these facility owners or intermediators and facilitators like DIT-ICT ultimately must satisfy the needs of the customer. Customer from the education, which can be student professor, and ending up with customer in the form of R&D organization in an SME or bigger organization or something. And with this perspective of the focus on the customer, I think that what is needed, and we saw in the presentation a couple of examples of approaches depending on their customer focus, but I think if we talk about federating and using services of peers, we need to think about something like, let's say, a maturity model. So to say for someone participating in this federation. What is the baseline, what is needed as a basic technology in order to go for such business arrangement, and how does this maturity grow? So what is the next level, what is the next level, and so forth until this is something that I hope that will emerge from these two flagship projects, Fantastic and CI Fire, because according to the objectives it should tackle this. And then I think that we can have something like, let's say, commonly agreed standards regarding the capabilities of facility owners, of intermediators, or facilitators like DIT-ICT. But again, I repeat, starting with the focus on the customer.
Thank you, Stefan. So focus on the customer. What do the others think? So will the collaboration with the organizations mentioned help in the customer focus, and how does it do that? Any views on the panel or in the audience? Please.
Say, would it be possible to take a minute maybe to locate the source? It's almost impossible to concentrate on it.
Yeah, I'm very sure it's not coming from someone's telephone or laptop.
It doesn't sound like a telephone. I don't know. Is it coming? That is a mobile phone. I'm not sure it's a mobile phone. Don't know. If it's coming from the laptop, should we disconnect this? Aha! Okay, we got you. Okay, so at least we created some excitement. Everybody's awake. Okay, so I wish every question could be answered that easily. So
because we customize this. Someone who doesn't do very often.
okay, good. So your question is answered. Any other questions? So we were talking about customers. Please.
Maybe
I don't know if you want to continue on the customer track, maybe somebody, but my question is a slightly different question. Because we are discussing sustainability of investment, we are discussing federation, etc. I would be interested in knowing your opinions on the sustainability question of FIA as an initiative, as a funding mechanism from the European Commission. So, for me, this is the most interesting question because I come from that side. So, because we receive from time to time internally criticism of funding more on the same, more or less. And now I hear that we are in I experience that we are in a quest for defining sustainability models and defining cooperation, which would make either individual facilities or federated facilities sustainable. But I'm wondering about the FIA initiative as a whole, as a funding mechanism and its sustainability. I don't know if, of course, it's a question that the Commission might need to answer first, but I was wondering about your opinions.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. Would somebody on the panel volunteer? Any ideas, answers? Otherwise, we can give it to the floor. Please, Stefan.
I would like to, before addressing this question, to know that the Commission have a, let's say, a model for assessing this sustainability.
A model for assessing the sustainability?
Yes, so this is for me a type of, let's say, must belong to some type of a research program which have some elements of assessing the effectiveness, efficiency, under the line, let's call it sustainability. What are the metrics that we use? What are the elements of the framework for assessing the effectiveness, efficiency of this program?
The Commission has so far followed a kind of bottom-up approach, relying on certain market to find what is a good, what can be, let's say, the evaluation process to find what is a good facility to build, what is a good facility to operate, and what models and mechanisms should be for funding its creation, its extension, its longer life, etc. We do not have a sustainability framework or a sustainability model. We have asked from time to time projects to develop this kind of sustainability models. So we are hoping that the support action that we fund will work towards that direction. But I'm asking about the initiative sustainability. I'm not asking about the sustainability individual facilities or individual or even federations. My question is more on the how longer has the European Commission sustained the funding model of individual or federated facilities.
I think some funding will always be needed both for the templates and for running the evaluation because that's self-sustainable that they make money, we do this just charge spinners and make money out of that. I think these things are so getting access to the costs are so high that I think it will be challenging to make them fully self-sustainable. Of course, you know that we are looking also into that at filing with the fire task force working on sustainability. So this is just my gut feeling that we say like that. But I think that we need some level of funding. Where does this come from? This is something, as you like said, every that is responsible for its own sustainability on a template level. So this is what Belgium needs to do with funding everywhere, not really in the team program and so on. And then the question, so does it have to come from Europe? It's hard to say. It does. Obviously, I think the value should be there. If you have some research goals and you want to drive in Europe research further and you have even momentum, then if you are convinced that it's still valuable, then I think it's okay to keep funding it. But I think we should be critical and deep to learn that as to what's still useful and what's not, and to keep pushing that the views are involved, that we really have impact on what we do. But I think that in the end, Because if you cut out the entire fire program equipment, I think you love a few things. Because we saw it yesterday in the workshop of standardization. It was a pity, there was an experiment saying, I don't remember the name of the experiment, we worked on Ophelia, we are still continuing, and Ophelia stopped, and this is time for that. So this is really a pity. If you have good momentum, people find that really useful. I think there should be some way of keeping that forward, but I think it's not that needs to come from us, themselves, this is from the national funding, from group, and so on. But like I said, that's my gut feeling, and we are looking into that with people who know a lot more about sustainability than me personally, and we probably to their results to
Yeah, I think that in the current work program there are several areas marketed opportunity. I think that the goal is a complementary action to what Ruby said earlier. Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is interesting for the kind of the excellent, which is a very important tool. I'm talking about scientists because it fails to validate the ideas in a realistic way. Wi-Fi is the only environment in which I've seen the effort to merge different ideas together, create an ecosystem which is similar as much as possible to the evolution of the internet or the other environment. So I think that the value of SPIRE is exactly the ecosystem itself, and the fact that it supports the experimentation, and as a goal medium to long-term evolution. So this is what I see as key values in this environment, and the fact that in this environment you have the right mixture, if you want, of high-level researchers, business and commercial environment, and something halfway between the pure research and the commercial environment, which is something we have, which we have, and we need to maintain support in a production environment which can actually filter. Okay, this is ideas now where it will be difficult to do, or these ideas will actually be beneficial to my environment because it can be implemented. So this is a partial answer, and this is how I see it.
So now, if I make a blunt interpretation of what you're saying, this would be an argument to run Fire forever, right? So, because this sort of ecosystem, if it's always needed as long as there's some experimentation related to
What I try to
the
say
internet,
is
then you may want to run it forever. Or
no,
did I go too far in the interpretation? Just want to provoke
I'm
you.
not talking about funding, I'm talking about research strategies.
Okay.
And I'm current committee with cuts in research funding in severe which actually reduces the research funding only to closer to immediate exploitation of research. I think that the goal of the Europe as a whole is to look at all its talents in time, not just the immediate research, but also the medium to long term. So this kind of research in the medium to long term is needed. The best way to fund, to foster this type of research is obviously to take information around the various countries. But I see the strong need of having these, and I advocate the importance of testing the ideas with people.
Okay. Thank you. I think Stefan and Tassos. Stefan,
one word. So exactly what you have said now. It is about an R&D spend. Now, not at the level of nations, and we see that globally more and more national research strategies have been designed, but now we talk about strategy at the level of Europe. Okay, and this strategy has a number of objectives, and one needs to be for achieving this objective is this experimentally driven test-based environment, individual or federal. Now the fundamental question is how do we measure the contribution of this instrument to the reaching of the objective, if I understood well your question. And for that, you have to have in your strategy also the evaluation instrument. Otherwise, if you start bottom up, everybody will say, from my point of view, because I'm some provider, I can imagine that you have to correlate this systematically and programmatically. Objective, contribution to the achievement of the objective. And this is, of course, something not trivial. And it, in my opinion, it has to be adopted afterwards as a let's say, evaluation tool by every individual company. Not the reporting. Someone reports I have produced 10 original papers which are based on this, another one maybe based on that 3 SMEs from have done an experiment. It's very heterogeneous, not consistent, as such, not comparable between such. So it is needed when you define the strategy to have define also this type of, let's say, index, how to measure the contribution of that. This is something that I hope will come to this project because they follow now top-down approach. They start with the question of sustainability and so forth and come down. And in my opinion, if the Commission solutions like fully paid by Commission or zero paid by Commission are not relevant because there can be a case where fully paid by Commission brings benefit to the objective higher than if not paid by the Commission, which contributes very little to the objective. It's always a matter what is more meaningful for achieving those strategy objectives that you have defined at the level of the program.
Okay, I think Tassos first and then...
Yeah, well, Stefan has addressed quite a bit of what I had to say because I also see this whole initiative, not actually only the FIA initiative as such, but even actually older, as a larger organism or ecosystem which actually can be measured. And approaches to measure these larger ecosystems have been actually defined also by work or at least groundwork, some groundwork has been done by the European Commission and other and also by the OECD. And if we actually start from this top down, then we can a bit easier actually identify the necessary metrics that we actually need to keep an eye on how these metrics actually benefit the society. Because at the end of the day, this is what we all promise to do, right? In this area.
So, final words on Serge before we
I can be straight. I hate KPI. To start with.
Yeah, me too, sir. But no, at the end of the day, you have to answer some questions to some people who don't understand anything than such a number.
I understand the question. I've been involved in the trial since the first day, and at the first +1, we had discussion about sustainability, users, and so on. I'm really concerned with this always very defensive position that we have in Europe. We are always defensive. It was mentioned by Vic, just to take for example, when we have this workshop with Jenny, and I had this discussion with Chief Developers in the very beginning of Jenny, never ever they have this question. Of course, they will have an evaluation soon, and they will decide about what to do next. But during the project, never ever they were asked about KPI and sustainability and bringing industry. They don't care. They want to have an impact, and already they can say, look, if you consider SDM, somehow they had an impact because they enabled SDM to demonstrate its value. This is partly true. Maybe this is also a marketing approach. But this is very important to have this very positive and aggressive position. the position in Europe is also schizophrenic. Yesterday we had a meeting about development of the facilities and GP and the GDP. And the position was that, okay, in FIA you look at this 10%, as I said, of experimental will come from research and that you cannot charge, and we address 90% of the real customers. Do they also have these questions about sustainability? Can they demonstrate in the short term that they are able to embrace diversity and also attract research and users? So, again, I think that we needed some time to demonstrate, and I understand the question from the Commission. What I will do, but this is only a personal opinion, so I apologize. I think we have a cycle, which was the development of FIA, that is going to terminate, to my opinion, at the end of that profile. Of course, there are new projects coming in. Most of them I've seen are trying to expand the FIA footprint because you want to develop different kind of test bed, and it's nice because you also bring the knowledge to the community and you can experiment with cutting-edge developments. But with respect to the principle, with the vision, I think that we should be able to demonstrate at the end of that profile of just 1 year, so that we can see what is the impact. And then we can really value the impact, not only with respect to the 2 or 3 or 200 SMEs that have used the facility, but you have to look at the impact with respect to outreach divided by the funding. And please apply the similar analysis to other developments. This is what I will do, because honestly I think that although you can continue forever, the principles should be demonstrated at the end of it for 5 years plus maybe a year, so that we can also get the feedback from the business. And then we could say, yeah, maybe we need to continue the same way, maybe we could have a different kind of development, maybe we could stop. I mean, personally, I think it's important to what will be the outcome of this evaluation. I think it would be nice if it's a real analysis, not an evaluation of FIA by FIA, or by, let's say, people involved in FIA, but an international evaluation would be nice.
Okay, thank you, Serge, for that final
You
word.
may
Sorry.
have the final word.
No, we can't. Sorry, it's not possible. Time's up. I think it's wonderful for panel discussion. If there are more questions, the session is closing in a minute. I'll say some final words, and then we continue the discussion, please, in the break. So I think it was a great session because we brought up a couple of topics, even some that I didn't expect here, but thank you, Nikos, which are still very worthwhile to discuss. And from the responses we got, I think it was good that you brought it up, and I think it is part of our sustainability discussion, but also relates to the collaboration discussion, which was the focus, so which we lost a little bit in the last 10 to 15 minutes, but it's still related, I think. So on the collaboration opportunities, to keep it concrete, now you can please talk anytime to any of the panelists, and of course myself, as the coordinator of CI-FIRE, when it comes to concrete collaborations with EIT, IST Labs, with Jérôme, or with Ginny. And of course I would be very happy about any discussion and collaboration opportunity beyond what we presented right now that you want to bring into the discussion. And for those who think the discussion time was too short, I would like to please make you aware again that on the 27th of June we have a full day in Paris to discuss these matters and with a focus on EIT-IC Labs. I would like to thank you very much and hope that you will return in half an hour, it is, to our fourth and final session of the workshop. Thank you very much, and an applause for our panelists.